All right, let me get. There we go. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday night live stream. I wish there was a better seamless way. I got to push too many buttons to get that. I got to pull that off, then put myself on, then put you on. It's kind of a little bit tricky there. So there's a little bit of a gap. I like the beginning that I've come up with for the introduction to the Monday night thing. It seems pretty fun. And then if I ever want to like use it for a podcast, there's kind of an introduction there too, so it's kind of nice. But yeah, we had a very interesting talk, you and I, about technology, and it was almost an on the fly thing. It was again, I say this a lot about a lot of subjects. It was one of those subjects I wanted to talk about and had been wanting to talk about for a while, and I had been holding off because I actually wanted to get a guest on who knew something a little bit more than I did about technology, but it just never kind of came through. I just, it just didn't happen. I tried to reach out to the 8-bit guy. I don't know if you know who he is, the 8-bit guy.
Heard of him. Heard of him.
Yeah, he does like old computer stuff. I thought that'd be fun to talk to him, but never heard anything back from him. I reached out to a couple other people who do Gen X tech, and they never got back to me, or they said they couldn't right now. And so we were kind of kicking around an idea, and you mentioned an anthology, and I was less like, I was trying to look up anthologies, and I'm like, I don't think I could do anthology unless there was somebody else on who could talk more about it, because I mean, it would really be more like Twilight Zone. I can't think of too many Gen X anthologies, but
I
these
can.
you Gen X ones, or would it all be just
Oh
Twilight
yeah.
Zone? And
Believe it or not, there was a renaissance of anthologies in the '80s. There was the reboot of Twilight Zone, obviously.
yeah.
Also, Alfred Hitchcock. There was Ray Bradbury Theater.
Oh yeah.
Something called Monsters.
I don't remember Monsters.
It
I
was
remember Ray
sort of a,
Bradbury Theater. That was pretty good.
that was
That was
excellent. He actually hosted it himself, which was
yeah.
amazing. So there's more than you could think, but you have to be a true sci-fi horror buff to know it, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So a
Well,
guest might be great for that one though, because I'm sure there's others who know whereof I speak.
right. And I'm actually trying to do this thing where I'm going to try to even it out a little bit. Like I don't because I get things too clustered. Like I'll talk about like movies for like 3 episodes, and so I'm trying to do one episode on music, one episode on movies, one episode on TV, and then like a miscellaneous episode like we're doing like right now, like on tech or something like that. So as you know, next week we've got all geared up to have the action Owen from the Action Elite on. We're going to talk about action movies, but this is all kind of preface to you and I were talking, and I said, "Hey, let's just do tech," and I didn't even know where the conversation was going to go. I had no idea, but we had a blast. We had a blast
We
talking about it
really
and just
did.
reminiscing about our old black and white TVs and our old VHS players and tape players and all that stuff. And of course, now we're here on the Monday night stream where we get to hear from you folks about your tech and some of your favorite tech growing up, and how it's changed, how it impacted you. I'm interested in hearing whether or not you were a record. This is one of the things I'm interested in, whether or not you were a record person, a tape person, um, uh, 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 an 8-track person. I'm interested in that question, but I'm interested in a lot of questions. So before we get to that, let's just give shout outs to everybody who's in the channel. Let's say hi to all the
Let's.
people. Yes.
Friend of
John
channel John Collins says hi,
Honeycomb Hideout member John Collin. How you doing, my friend?
and
My
he goes on to
brother.
say, "How is everyone?"
Well, I'm doing good. I mean, like I said, I look forward to this every week. It's just awesome. So I'm really good right now. How are you doing, Thrash?
I'm doing quite well as well, and I hope everyone else is. And John, I hope you're doing well in particular.
Yes, sir.
Another friend of channel, Lance
Yes.
Chafin says the Atari 2600, a classic.
Yeah,
It
I
sure
have it.
was.
I
And to
have
put
it.
the horse before the other horse, he also says, "Hiya, Ian and Thrash, and hello to you too, young man."
Yes.
There you go. Let's see. Trey Thoros Myers in the house. She says
Tracy, how you
hello to John
doing?
and Lance, and also says hello to us. Hello to Ian and Robert.
Hey,
Hello to you too.
another honeycomb hideout. Now I hope you're taking advantage of it because I actually put up a video today over on the honeycomb hideout, which is 3 cartoons based on celebrities.
Ooh.
So it was a lot of fun. Shorter video. It was only like 6 minutes long, so pretty good, pretty good. YouTube. It should be good YouTubeable.
Spike Spikerson is in the house and says, "Are we there yet?"
And are we there yet? And I don't know, Spike. I don't know if we're there yet, but I'm glad you're here. I think maybe he meant just like have we started? So yeah, we
Probably.
started.
Well, I was almost getting a "Dude, where's my car?" thing,
Oh,
but either way, Spike, it's great to see you.
yeah, it's great to see you, Spike.
And there's a couple others I want to say hi to before. I'm not skipping your comments. I also make sure I say hello to everyone.
Yeah, let's just make sure we say hello to everyone reasonably, and then if more people show up and we go through the comments, we'll say hello like kind of normal. Future boy. All
Says
right,
hello,
man.
everyone. Hello to you too.
Hello, future boy.
Zuberblick says, "Good evening."
Good evening, Mr. Superplex.
John H says, "Hello, all."
Hello, John. Glad to have you in the house. Big shout out, John.
Georgia Ayers, Georgia, who's always on my mind, says, "Hi, gentlemen."
Hello, Georgia. Awesome to have you here with us in the chat.
Nancy D says,
Nancy
"Hello,
D.
everyone. Happy Monday."
Happy Monday to you, Nancy.
The Black Adder says, "Hey, guys." Hey to you,
Hello,
Justin.
Blackadder. Hey, Justin. How you doing, brother?
And I'll just say, oh, guess who's here?
Danny Staten from South
Greetings
Carolina.
from South Carolina.
Greetings, my friend. Hope all is well. Keep up the fight. Keep up the fight.
And here we have Mr. Lead.
Lead.
Hey guys, got my notification late. You really haven't missed much. We've just been patting each other on the back for the last 5 or 6 minutes.
I've been talking about how awesome I am. And I've been interrupted. Oh, look, Dave. I was going to make a joke, but Dave's in the house. Hey,
Dave
folks.
Sundstrom, hey, folks. Dave, always amazing to see you.
Yes, for sure. Glad you.
And another Dave Coroni. Hi, guys.
Right on. These are the Daves I know.
These are the Daves I know. These are the Daves I
know. Right.
I saw them live in Boston, years ago.
You did? They had a live show?
Kids in the Hall did a live performance in Boston at a...
Was it a... Okay, go ahead.
Oh, it was a smaller venue, but it was very nice and cozy, and they put on a great show. A lot of it is stuff you see them do in their TV shows, but a lot of it is fairly new. Yeah. And of course, they do a lot of improv as well, so they were actually a lot of fun. So at the moment, that's all the hellos. So if I missed anyone, I'm terribly sorry. I scrolled very slow to get everyone, but don't worry, I will find you.
Well, let's go back up to the Atari 2600 because there was something I said in the podcast, but there's something more I wanted to say in the live chat. Then we'll just start working our way down to hear from you guys as far as the tech that you grew up on, what you loved about it, what you hated about it. I mean, I'll have to be honest with you. I can't think of a better time to live. I mean, I know that things are going to get better technologically in the future, but I mean, what I have right now is what I dreamed about when I was a kid. Literally, it's what I dreamed about when I was a kid. I mean, I dreamed that I could just watch shows anytime I wanted. I could listen to any music I wanted to listen to. I just, and not have to be a billionaire with a million tapes and CDs. But the Atari 2600, I got that from my uncle. My mom bought it from my uncle, gave it to me as a Christmas gift. And I had a few different cartridges, but I never bought a cartridge. Never bought a cartridge after that. I only had the cartridges that he gave me, and I think it was Asteroids, Defender, Pac-Man, and there was basketball and the racing game, and I can't remember if there's another one, if there's any other ones. But if I was a gamer today, I'd be happy about that too, about the way we've progressed here. But I'm just not a gamer anymore, so that kind of escapes me. My big gaming stuff was arcades back in the 80s and the Atari, and by the 90s I was kind of out of it. Want to say anything about that, Thrash?
Oh, just again, the 80s. The arcade to me was like the teenage version of the casino. I spent much time in the arcades when I was a kid, particularly that one that was in the next town over for me. It was called Schools Out. That was the one in the Kmart Plaza, and I
Right.
spent much time there.
Right.
But again, by the time the '90s rolled around, it seemed almost like the more advanced the technology got, the less fun the games became. I think
Hmm.
with improved technology, I think the need to make them entertaining took a back seat because they were already visually stunning enough as it was. Um,
Uh-huh.
I would much rather play like Defender or Space Invaders or even Joust than some of the games you might find in a casino of today.
Joust
But
was
that's just
awesome.
me.
I
I
loved
love Joust.
Joust.
I have one of those little handheld versions of Joust in my man cave.
I
It
just
is
can't
so
do
much
it.
fun.
These days
Oh,
I just can't play video games. I just
I can't play them at all, but I still
oh
do.
you the last game that I played that I actually completed, I actually did I complete it? I can't remember. This was late 90s, early 2000s, is Sega, and it was Obi-Wan Kenobi was the name of the game.
I don't
And
think I ever
of
played that
course
one.
I played it because it was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we
I
had
have
a
a
kid,
Sega, but I don't have Obi-Wan.
I think it was Sega anyway, but we had a kid living with us who was kind of a foster kid
Mhm.
through like more of a private organization. And he had a Sega and he had Obi-Wan. And I dug on that game. That was kind of the last game that I really got into.
I usually,
To
if I can get past the first screen, I pat myself on the back, but I never finish them.
Everyone was laughing at me because I was just so idiotic when it came to that game. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I mean, I was looking at, you could look at your scores and you could, like, I was just like way low as far as hit points and everything is concerned. Go ahead.
Oh, just John Collins said something very nice here. He said, "Hello, Ian and Robert. Much appreciation and respect for and to you both, and thank you very much."
Thank you. Likewise.
Oh, and
Likewise as
I
well.
think this is what Spike Spikerson was getting at when he was said, and watching tornadoes in Texas and southern Oklahoma.
Oh,
Our
yeah.
hearts go out to those people. I hope they all do okay. Cape Cod never got tornadoes. You could count on one hand the number of tornadoes we got in the last 40, 50 years. And in the last 5 years, we've had like 10 to 15 of them.
We,
Somehow, Cape
yeah.
Cod has gotten tornadoes now.
Wow. We had tornadoes in Utah. We
Well, that
did.
I can see.
Well, no, I mean, it's unheard of. I think the
Oh,
last
really?
tornado was up in Salt Lake was like I mean, yeah, because it's mountains. I mean, we're in the mountains. I mean, this is the on our license plate it says best snow on earth. But there was one up at like 2001 or something like that that was up in Salt Lake and did some damage, and it was nutty. Everybody was like we don't have tornado watch. It's like you guys having like landslide watch or something like that, or avalanche watch or something. I don't know. Or somebody in Mexico having avalanche watch or something. It just doesn't happen here. So it was crazy. I think Dave would remember that. Yeah, he'll have to chime in on this one if Dave was there when the tornado hit up in Salt Lake, and I think it was '01 or '02, or maybe
I'll
it was
watch
later
for it.
than that too.
I'll watch for it.
So
There, this actually made CNN. There was a kind of a nice little hotel here right here in my hometown, and the tornado came by and it ripped the roof right off. And here's a terrifying bit: some of the families didn't get the tornado warnings because they were too busy having fun. It's a summer place, having vacation, all that. There was a kid swimming in the pool
oh no.
when the tornado went by, and he saw the roof get torn off. He was okay. It was his lucky day, you could say. Of course, if he was really lucky, there'd have been no tornado at all.
Right.
But he saw the thing get ripped off, and it's like, wow. The footage is still right here on YouTube.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, Mr. Zoomerflick says, wasn't the Creep Show an anthology? Yes, an anthology film, and they now stream it as a current anthology where there's different episodes, and I've seen some of them, and they're actually quite good.
Hmm.
Let's see. Oh, Mr. Future Boy says, I grew up with the Walkman's NES console and Sega Master System. I never had the
Cool.
Master System, but
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the Walkman, man. That was my jam. I love the Walkman. I was the very first time I ever got a Walkman, though, it was one that didn't have I don't know, it was just like crazy. Like, did you have to be a millionaire to have one that had everything on it? Like, it really bugged me because the first thing I got was just a radio that you could listen to. And I was just like, oh, I wish I had a tape on this. And then I got a tape, but it only had fast forward. I'm like, what's the deal? Why can't I do rewind? If I want to listen to a song again, I got to eject it out of the Walkman. And I know Walkman's a brand name, so I'm not sure exactly, if it was an official Walkman, but it was, portable tape player that you could, that big. And yeah, you had to turn it out, flip it over, and fast forward it and turn
I
it back.
remember that. So you couldn't go back when you could go forward at regular speed when you were listening to it,
Yeah,
or fast forward to get it to the end of the tape. But then you'd have to flip it over and listen to the side, or
right.
fast forward it if you wanted to hear side A again. I
But if you
do
wanted to
remember that.
listen to a song, you had to flip it over and I don't even know why they wouldn't have both buttons as a standard feature. That
Um,
just doesn't even make any sense to me.
my understanding was because it was so small, the motor was limited, and
Oh,
it didn't have the going. It would have been an addition to have it go backwards. See, it has to go forward anyway, so making it
I
go forward
see.
faster is no problem.
I
Having it
got
go
it.
backwards would mean
Well, you just took a complaint away from me, I guess.
I'm in customer service. That's what I do.
You're like, hey, let me help smooth this out for you, buddy.
The
Right
one the
on.
one problem I always found with the Walkman tape player is, and I was all about the Walkmans, and I always got them for cheap because I always managed to have a friend who would upgrade and get a better one,
Yeah,
and either gift me his old one or sell it to me for next to nothing.
right.
And my first one was a radio, and that was great. But the problem was, I needed it for my bicycle. I did a lot of biking when I was a kid, and I had to have my music. The first thing I did was, it wasn't a boombox; it was more like one of those transistor radios. But I duct taped it to my bike, so I could listen to music while I was on my bike. So actually having a headphone and actual radio on my bike
Right.
was wonderful. The only problem was limited antenna, limited service. So as I went, the stations kind of went in and out. So there's only
Right.
like one or two stations I could get really good.
Uh-huh.
So being able to listen
Did
to my tapes was a huge upgrade,
right, right.
but it gobbled batteries so fast. I could go a couple weeks with the radio. I was changing my Walkman tape player probably every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, yeah, they did get the batteries. Did you ever do the Discman?
No, by that time, I
The
I
first the first Discmans I heard, I didn't have any, but they skipped like crazy. It was
I do
almost like,
remember that.
yeah, it was really bad. They just almost went out as quickly until they could settle those things. All right, what else we got as far as the other comments are concerned? Well, he
Let's
said
see.
NES console, Sega Master System. That's all cool stuff.
Very, very cool. We have a lot of people having fellowship, and that's always wonderful. Everyone's saying hi to everyone.
Everyone's
That's great.
saying hi to each other and everything.
Everyone's saying hi to
Cool.
somebody. Oh, Lance Jeffin says, "Don't forget Radio Shack. They closed the last Radio Shack in my on Cape Cod, and it was in my hometown right before the shutdown, and it broke my heart. I spent so much time in Radio Shack when I was a kid.
I loved Ray. Why? I don't understand why. I guess people are just buying it online.
Best Buy, Best Buy crushed them.
Best Buy crushed them so bad? I guess because I go to Best Buy now, and it's just, I mean, they don't even have anything. They tell you to order it online. They look at you like, why are you in a store?
Well,
What do you need
because they put everyone
electronics
out of business.
for?
That was Best Buy's plan all along. Put all I used to. My company was bought out by Best Buy,
What was
and
your
that's how I found
company?
out this through the channels. Their marketing plan. Their plan was to put all their competition out of business, and then jack up the prices and lower the inventory. So for years they were selling stuff for next to nothing and always had what you were looking for to get you in their store so you'd stop going elsewhere. But then when
Mm.
everyone went out of business, they didn't have to offer this, well, good service, and thus they stopped. And you're right. Now the last couple times I've gone to Best Buy, I have found helpful people and they have found for what I wanted. So it hasn't gone completely off the table. But you're right. The brick and mortars are going out the window. It's buy online, buy online, buy online.
Yeah, you just look it up online and then get it from Amazon or whatever.
But
So,
yes, rest in peace, Radio Shack.
but I still have a little bit of old school left in me. I actually like to go down to a place and actually look somebody in the eye and talk to them and ask them questions and things like that. So I don't know. I wish we still had Radio Shack.
Mr. Superblick says, if we do tech, we need to discuss the home computer.
Oh,
We sure do.
we do, and we did. That was a
And
big
we did.
component of the night. Yeah, the home computer. That's one thing that's gone just bananas. I mean, if somebody in my town when I was a kid in the '80s had a home computer, they were gazillionaires, and I couldn't understand it. Like understand how to make it work or whatever you did on it. But man, these days, I mean, these days anybody can use a computer. I mean, it's crazy.
I remember we were talking about this the other day. Initially, like schools had computer labs
Yeah,
where you wouldn't have one in your home, but it'd be like going to the library and use theirs because you didn't
right.
need it all the time. I don't think I got my first home computer. I want to say into the late '90s,
Yep.
maybe 2000,
That's when I got
and
my first home computer too. Was the late '90s.
and it was huge, and you really couldn't do much with it.
You
Well,
could
not like
surf
compared
the
to
internet.
today.
We did have the at that
Yes,
time I did have the internet, and there were some sites that I really enjoyed going to.
and it
Um,
ding ding brrr, the whole dial-up situation. Remember
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the noises it made. But yeah, you could surf, but it took forever. And the idea of getting this level of picture quality
Oh, it was insane. It wasn't even close. I
wasn't.
remember trying to looking up some music videos on there, and it would be like you could play like 30 seconds of a music video. Or
And it would show you the little scroll in the bottom,
yep,
and
yeah, and it would be
so
a super small screen on it because if you blew it up, it'd be all pixelated out. Ah, such a good time to be alive. I mean,
they've come an incredibly long way. They really have.
and I wouldn't be able to do what I do here, without the fact that it is so easy to use.
And
I
I couldn't
mean,
ride your coattails if it wasn't so easy.
yeah, of course, right on.
Ooh, Denny Staten. We talked about this the other night. Denny Staten says my first VCR 1979. It was the bomb.
I'm gonna
Question
guess.
for you, Denny. Were you? Did they have any places to get movies back then, or was it solely used for taping stuff off TV?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I would have to know somebody back in 70. By the time I even got watched a first VHS player, they had already had movies out. So I came into it a little bit late in the game. But there was like, you'd record movies off television and stuff like that. And like I said, I had a friend. Well, I had many friends, but I had a friend in the 80s whose family had a VCR, and they had a ton of movies, man. I remember we used and they would record off of HBO and Cinemax too. So that was cool. So we got a lot of those movies too. But when I was a kid, I had to rent them. The very first VHS player we ever had personally was a console, was a combo. That's what it's called. So it was a small TV with a VCR in it, and that wasn't until 19 might have been 91, actually, the first time we actually had one and didn't have to rent it. Yeah.
I, I remember when I was a kid, I wanted a VCR just because. Well, you might find this hard to believe. I was something of a problem child and got punished a lot. And one of the first things that always went out the window was the TV, literally on some occasions. And I had this dream that I go, well, if we had a VCR and I couldn't watch TV, I could tape the shows and watch them theoretically when I was no longer being punished.
Ah,
Now, of course, would
thinking
my mother,
ahead there.
it
Thinking
was,
ahead.
but would my mother have permitted me to tape stuff while I was on punishment? Because then the whole point would have been lost, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, does she have to know? Or could you have done it covertly, or no? Could you have not have
I
done it
could have,
covertly?
but then if she had found out I was doing it, that would have responded in
That
more
would have been
punishment.
that would have been part of the punishment. Then the next time it would have been and no VCR either.
Yeah, it was sort
Oh,
of being a naughty boy entitled one to punishment. Being deceptive to your mother is what really brought out the big guns. It
yeah,
was almost better to be forthcoming and get the slap on the wrist than to deceive her and be the oh we're gonna play that game, huh? You know.
yeah.
So yes.
Right
Oh,
on.
and Lance Chaffin says Commodore 64.
I never had one. I think I had a roommate that had one. I think I talked about that.
I had the
The video
Nintendo
games on it.
64. I do remember that. My dad worked for IBM.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
naturally the first home computer was an IBM. But I remember William Shatner did those commercials for Nintendo's by my tongue Commodore 64. Didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. I
I
remember
don't
it.
know. Did anybody remember Colecovision?
Oh, I actually had a
With the little
ColecoVision.
with the Oh, you did.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, those got went out. Did you ever get the situation where like at Kmart and Walmart they had video games that you could sample that you could play?
I don't
Or
remember
no?
them. In-house, no.
No, there were where I was from. They like at Kmart. They had like the TV was behind a glass thing, and then they had the consoles come out, and then you could sample it. Well, just kids would line up and do it. They would just line up and be there and play those games. And then I never got to play because I was, it was always older kids shoving me around, so I could never play. So.
On Blackadder says, remember that short period of time where the Atari Lynx was the ultimate in portable gaming, maybe 87. By that point, I was, I was in school and using the Apple IIs and playing Sun Tzu's The Ancient Art of War and stuff like that. The handheld stuff had kind of gone out for me. How about you, Ian?
I don't remember the links at all. Yeah, I do remember that by 87, Atari had kind of died because they came out with a video game that killed them. There's actually a documentary on it on Netflix. It's called Game Over, and it's about ET. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And apparently they
I do
buried in some town in America. I don't know where it is, but apparently there was a rumor that Atari had buried like thousands and thousands of games, like out in a landfill. And the whole documentary is about finding that spot. And in the documentary, they talk about like how ET destroyed him and how they went downhill and how ET was a crappy game. And I wanted that ET game so bad I couldn't even tell you. My mom had this thing say, save up for it, save up for it. Well, there was no saving up with me. If I had money, it was gone, man. It was gone. I had no self-discipline. And but I wanted that game so bad. But yeah, there's this documentary. But I mean, it goes through the whole how ET kind of crashed it, and that there was this rumor about, like I said, about this town and how they had buried it all in a landfill, and they went out and got it, and there were thousands of ET games, and people got them now. Like people have them as kind of a memorabilia thing. Like
I was gonna say they couldn't possibly still work.
Oh well, they were in the cartridges. I mean, they were in the boxes,
and they
were actually like in the box.
But I figure like with dampness seeping in and everything.
I don't know. Decades. Who knows? I don't know if it can or can't, but it would be like burying this, like thousands of these. I mean, this is a DVD collection, but you can see that it's got the plastic on it still and everything unopened. I mean, they just buried thousands of them in this place.
That's a
great story. I think there were other games too. Yeah, it's a fun documentary to watch. Even my wife enjoyed it, and she and I neither one of us are gamers. So
Danny Staten says, big day in 1981. My first car had a cassette deck, and I started buying tapes for my car. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you don't mean 8-tracks, that you mean cassettes, because those are the ones I was really into. Yes, those were wonderful. I pirated many. What's the statute of limitations of pirating music? I pirated many off the radio, but Tons. The big thing was, yeah. But I had many cassette tapes.
We did tape to tape a lot. I was actually going to, at one time, I wanted to start a business where I rented out tapes, audio tapes. Like I would buy it and then I would rent them out for $1. I never did it though, but I was going to. I had the idea.
Very good idea.
Pirate tapes and then rent them out to my friends for $1. Because actually we had a class, I think it was in 7th grade, and I think it was like 1987 or something like that, where the teacher allowed us to come in and have headphones. And there was a few classes that we couldn't have headphones for, and but it was like reading or something like that. But math and spelling and everything, what she did was we were allowed to have headphones one time, and she noticed that nobody was talking, everybody was working because we had headphones. So from that time on, she said, you're allowed to bring your tape players in, you just can't do it during reading. So I brought in George Carlin. A friend of mine gave me George Carlin. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah. You maybe remember, there's a very, very funny story from my high school. My history teacher, one of my history teachers, said to me that he was hit the ground running and said, just so you know, during finals, there'll be no Walkmans. I don't even want them in your book bag. And we're like, oh, okay, no problem. Why? And he goes, a couple of years ago, one of my students said to me, hey, Mr. C, would you mind if I listen to my headphones while I do my test. I listen to music when I study. It'll help me relax. I'll probably get a better
I
grade.
see where this is going.
You sure do. Mr. C said, "Sure, no problem. It's a good idea." And he's like, of course, he's proxying the students. He's walking by, and all of a sudden he hears the Industrial Revolution. The kid had made a cheat sheet on his cassette player,
Yeah.
and he was so lucky. He could have been suspended. He could have been thrown out of the class. The teacher just wouldn't give it to me. Back at the end of the day, and don't try that again. But it was so innovative. I couldn't bust him for it, and I told him
Yeah.
he could use it. So it was partly my
Right.
fault, but it was a great story. And you have to admit, it was a great innovation. Future Boy says, cassette tapes for me. I always thought records and old tech never thought it will make a comeback. And of course, VHS for movies. Never been a fan of the format.
Oh, never been a fan of maybe of other format
Of other, I assume that's what Future Boy meant.
Yeah.
I did break down and get DVD when VHS ended, but I too was always a huge fan of the VHS.
Yeah, and I had significant. I was always late for everything, so I had tapes up even until, tapes didn't become a thing. I had a lot of CDs too, but VHSs too. I mean, we had a lot of DVDs too, but I took VHSs all the way up until. I showed this on the thing, but I'll show it on the live stream in case anybody missed it. I mean, here is a VHS of Star Wars Episode 1, and when did that come out on VHS? 2000. Something
just
like that.
Just about. Well, VHS didn't disappear altogether until about 2004. I was working for Suncoast Video at the time, and we still had VHS right up until then. VHS, it fought the good fight, and it was going downhill for some time, but it didn't. It didn't go away altogether until around 2004.
It's just easier to use the disc, and plus disc has all the other options. Like you can get the behind the scenes stuff and the deleted scenes and stuff like that, which were valuable to me. I really enjoyed that. And as far as music is concerned, I was a cassette person myself. Never owned. Yeah, never even owned it. I had a few records, but I never even owned anything. But
well, I had a few albums because my mama got me a stereo. Actually, that stereo that had the double cassettes, so I could record and make my own pirated audio cassettes as well. I love that stereo, but it had a turntable, and so I did have a few albums. Yeah. Many were gifts, but I did have a few.
I had a few as well. I had a collection of them. I never bought any others after that original. I just bought tapes because you could take them to your friend's house, and I mean they're just easier to carry.
Easier to carry, listen to them on your bicycle.
And then plus, when you get a car, you have a tape player in it. I mean, that's just buying tapes. That's all there is.
Mr. Superblick says, I remember my first video game console, which was a Magnavox. I had a friend who had a Magnavox.
I'm not sure I even know what a Magnavox is.
It was a game system, but it was for the Magnavox. Magnavox was they did TVs and stuff. I don't even think they're still in business, to be honest with you. But they were really big, and I'm guessing this is around, I'm guessing this would be early 80s, maybe 81, 82. If I rack my brains, I think that was the approximate time. Oh, Mr. Sundstrom says, anyone have a Commodore Amiga? I loved that computer. I didn't. Did you?
No. The first computer I ever got that I had. Well, I mentioned on the program that somebody gave me a computer, but I had no idea what it was. I tried to hook up to my TV, and I didn't get anything. Like I couldn't even figure it out. It was. I might as well been a monkey trying to mess with the computer. But no, the first computer I got was a gift of a friend, but the one we bought was a Gateway computer. So I don't know if you remember Gateway computers or not.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the first one. It was like, I think it had Windows 95 on it or something like that. I think it was 3.1, and then it started going 95. And then I got Windows Millennium. That was a bust. What else we got here? Yeah.
We have Liz Javen says, is it live or Memorex? Well, Memorex tapes, they were the best. They really
that
were.
Is a thing that we didn't talk about a whole lot, and that was kind of the camera use. We got into it just a tad at the end. But I mean, I was just a regular camera guy. And when the disposable cameras came out, that was the bomb, man. I love those things. So you just pick them up and just take pictures with them. You don't have to worry about keeping care of your camera. You just used them, and then you went in and got it. I would go to the hour photo mat and get them done in an hour. They were really cool. I really enjoyed that. Um, yeah, I mean, today it's just everybody's got a phone on their camera or a camera on their phone, a phone on their camera.
And Tracy says, "Kids in the hall," which is a reference to our
Whoa.
earlier bit, which Danny picks up on when he goes, "These are the days. Ah, these are the days. These are the days of our lives.
These are the days of our lives.
The days of our lives."
A little bit of a different pun there.
I work with what I got. I try to keep it going.
Well, you do an excellent job, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that last video you had, I think we need to get you some professional help. I mean, there might be some government programs we could look into for you.
One of those nice, quiet, and safe nursing homes for the mentally unstable, little classical jazz in the background.
Listen, I don't want to call the authorities, my friend, but I mean, you're forcing my hand. Did you see some of those comments on your channel?
I sure did. And they were all very appropriate and very well appreciated. And which reminds me, I've been waiting for Cindy D to show up. She's been reminding me that I owe her a post on my compare and comparison to old style cop versus private eye shows. It will be done this week, come heck or high water. And I just want her to know. I thought I left her a message, but anyway, Cindy, if you're watching this, do not lose heart. You'll have it soon. Hubby and I saw Kids in Chicago. There you go. Chicago's almost as good as Boston.
Oh, them fighting words.
Yes, I have thrown down the gauntlet. Oh, Lance Chaffin says, the Sony Walkman. Yes, that was the biggie back in the day.
That was the big one. Right.
Oh, and Mr. Dave Clarioni says, I had a Commodore 64. So, yes, somebody had the Commodore 64. And let's see, skipping down. Oh, I had the first ATM card in 1985. My mom used to work for a bank chain, a local bank chain down here in Eastern Mass. And one of her, it wasn't a side hustle, but she used to take in some extra pay every week. She was on call 1 or 2 nights a week because those first ATM dispensers would always break down. And you had to have an employee on site when it was serviced. So
really?
she would get a call saying, yes, the North Street location, their ATM is down. And she would go there, and a professional would come out, and he'd do whatever he did, get it back online. And she received some extra pay every week for being on call as their
was that when the ATM places came out, the little stands that shot out money?
Mm-hmm.
In 85?
Yeah, I was going to say, but before they were even attached to banks, they were like these like freestanding, they look like sheds, small sheds. Some of them are still around, believe it or not.
Wow.
So Luke says, hello, Mr. Led. Are you related to Mr. Ed?
Little cut up back and forth there.
And Lance Javen says, I found an Atari 2600 plus 40 games. Got it for $30 at a garage sale. Man,
wow.
You got a bargain.
I wonder if it still works.
Even if it doesn't, it's still.
I'm gonna guess it still works.
Hopefully, I'm pretty sure it probably still works. Oh, and Mr. Lynn says, if I am, it's on my wife's side. You took your wife's married name?
Right on.
Oh. Tracy Meyer says, I loved Atari's Combat. Combat was actually one of the first arcade games I remember from when I was like, I'd say probably 9 or 10, believe it or not. And I loved the Atari version of Combat. That was great. That was the one. Do you remember that one, Ian?
No.
It's a tank duel. And you could play it 2-player against somebody if you had 2 joysticks, or against the computer itself. And there'd be a maze, and you would drive your tank around the maze, get a good shot at your friend or enemy, I should say, and fire at them. And you could play that all day. And there was another tank.
Wasn't and that you said that was an arcade game though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And was it green? Was the lines were green, and you turned and you looked like you were in a tank?
That
Or
was
no?
Battlezone, which I have both in my man cave. You guys have to come into my man cave sometime. I got to show you guys around. In my man cave, that was called Battlezone, and that
Hmm.
was point of view where you were actually in the
Yeah,
tank.
yeah.
And
That wasn't this one though. Okay.
no, that was a little more advanced. That one came out. I want to say in '85, and yes, it was that really new wave sort of green outline computer graphic that was so slick. In fact, I believe that was first used. That was a military use.
Hmm.
Um,
Probably.
before it became civilian, and that's why it was very cutting edge. But yeah, but the slick thing about that is it was you were in a modern tank, but it was on an alien landscape. So it was almost like you were invading some foreign planet, but they too had tanks, and you would have tank duels with them, and Saucer would come down and shoot at you, and it is such a fun game. But yeah, that was Battlezone, which
Hmm.
again I do remember. And Tracy says, "Oh, Lynn says Tracy, those tanks."
I don't
Oh,
get it.
in regards to the combat game. Zumblick says the joystick of the Atari led to carpal tunnel syndrome. Well,
Yeah,
that would
for
explain
sure.
a lot.
Well, you keep telling yourself that's what it was.
Naughty, naughty. Spike Spikerson says, I still haven't beaten Pac Man. I play for hours every day still. It's been 40 years.
There's very few people who have beaten Pac-Man. I did a 10 things you didn't know about Pac-Man. Apparently, when it gets to a certain level, it starts to break down. Like that's as high as you. I can't remember what the level is, but literally, like only half the screen works, and because it starts to have glitches. And there's only been a handful of people who have ever gotten all the possible points you can get, like every point that they've done it to where they've gotten every single point, like all the big, all the ghosts when you can eat them, every single point. And it took them a long time. I have it on my video, like it's like 5 things you didn't know about Pac-Man.
I still have one of those handheld versions of Pac-Man. I think one of my game systems has Pac-Man because they have games like In It. I think one of them does have a Pac-Man, but I usually just play a little handheld when
Mm.
I'm sitting in my.
I should take it. I did get into some retro gaming a little bit because right before, like, everybody had a flat screen and you still had a little thing in the back that you could plug into at the cable, there started to become these games that came out that were recreated classic arcade games, and they were in a joystick. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I have one of those.
Oh yeah, and I remember mine had Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man and a bunch of other games in it, in that little one. It's actually in the joystick. So I did get into that a little bit in the 2000s or something like that, whenever that was.
Mine has asteroids and some others I can't remember. I haven't
Yeah,
played it in forever. But in that wall of TVs I have, by the way,
yeah.
more than half of them have game consoles on them. One has that joystick you were talking about. One has the Sega. One has it. Each one has its own little game system. So I have tons of games. I just never get into play much. But now that it's getting warmer because my garage isn't heated for some reason,
Uh,
that'd be something of a luxury. But Dave Sundstrom says getting an Atari 2600 kept me away from the arcade and saved me more than a few quarters. I can only imagine. I used to like spend a whole
right.
week's allowance. Favorite games were Space
Space
Invaders,
Invaders.
Asteroids, as I was just talking about, Ms. Pac-Man, and Pitfall.
Pitfall was awesome.
I don't
Pitfall
remember
was
the
cool.
arcade Pitfall. He was talking about 2600, but yeah, the da, 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 da,
Yeah,
and you would swing
Pitfall was
across
pretty
the.
cool. I did not own Pitfall, but I had friends who did.
My best friend on Pitfall.
One of the friends I think I told you about, that whenever we'd get the game out and his dad or older brother were there, they'd just kick us off and start playing it themselves. He had Pitfall. So that was fun to whenever we did get to play when they weren't home, or maybe they were home and just weren't interested. Was one of that I wanted to go to right away. Was Pitfall. It's fun.
I think one of my favorites of all time to this day is Space Invaders, probably because when I figured out there's a pattern. If you
Yeah.
kill the aliens in a certain pattern, you're not guaranteed to win, but you clear the screens lickety split. So even I got good at Space Invaders.
That
So it's
was
probably my
cool.
favorite of all time. But yeah, great game, great game. Let's see. lot more. Oh, what's I? So Blake says, I don't think I ever won in Pac-Man. Well, that explains what you were saying. I don't think it's quite possible.
There's a handful of people who have done it. There's a handful. Well, make it to the top level is one thing, but make it to the top level with the maximum possible points is different. And there's really only a handful of people who have done either of those things.
Mr. Sundstrom, getting back to a question you shouted out
Oh yeah,
earlier,
yeah,
Dave.
that's
Yeah,
right.
Dave says I was working in SLC during that tornado. It was crazy. Salt Lake City, I'm guessing, is
Yep.
SLC.
Yeah, man. I remember hearing about it. It was like crazy all over news because it's really just it's I don't know. It just doesn't happen in Utah. So
Spike Spikerson says I loved the arcades at the bowling alley. That's where all the babes were. You know what? You know what? Before I destroyed my knee when I was in high school, I loved bowling, and it was a place called Ryan's Family Amusement, which was like a little chain of arcades and other ones. But they had this mega bowling alley in my hometown and a side arcade, and I remember I used to go bowling, and then I would hit the arcade because, in addition to the arcade games, that's where a lot of the young ladies also hung out.
yeah. A lot of people hung out at the arcades, young ladies
Yeah,
included.
but this was a bowling. That's the funny thing. This is a bowling alley.
Oh,
So
bowling
sometimes,
alley. Well,
so
everybody had an arcade. Like I'd go to Kmart and they'd have like a front of the store would have an arcade.
oh yeah.
Walmart, front of the store would have an arcade. 7-Eleven, at least two arcade games in 7-Eleven. I don't know why they don't do that. I guess they just lose money.
When I was a kid, there, there wasn't much infrastructure in my neighborhood. It was residential, but there was it was called a Little Peach. It's like a bodega. It was like a glorified convenience store. It was a convenience store, but it was big and had more variety of selection. But it had this little area set up at the front with a couple of arcade games. And my friends and I would buy junk food and play arcade games there as if it was our hangout
That's cool, man.
when I was like
Those are
12,
the
13.
good days.
They certainly were. They certainly were. John Collins says, "Hey Bob, could you do a review of the movie Mask? I would love to. It's very powerful and riveting. I would love to. It's actually my wife loves that movie. Perhaps her and I could have a date night and watch it again. And I saw it not too long ago. It's a great movie, and it certainly would deserve its own review. So yes, I'd be happy to do that for you.
The one with Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz and Cher plays his mother, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that was a
that's the
good
one.
movie. That was a really good movie.
It was
Loved
an
it.
excellent movie.
I'd love to see you do a review. That'd be awesome.
I will. Oh, Mr. Led says, I gave my Atari and all my games to my sister-in-law to sell in a garage sale. I could kick myself now. You know how many times I've done stuff like that?
We say that. I mean, we look at things and it's like we think, "Hey, this is not going to be worth anything anymore," and then you get rid of it. But there's also the other end where you think everything's going to be valuable, and you hold on to it, and it doesn't. It ends up being just trash. Nobody gives a crap. You know?
You know those comics I do for my Richard recaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm lucky, they're worth what I paid for them. If I'm
Oh
lucky.
yeah. Right.
Oh, John H has been having some weather problems. Says we've had tornado warnings in addition to rain here in DFW.
Yeah.
DFW. Dallas Fort Worth. Thank you. I got a shout out from off camera.
This just in.
This just in, yes. Dave Sundstrom says, I didn't see too many ladies at the arcade, just teenage boys.
That was my experience too.
Yeah.
That was my experience. But
well, in my town, the bowling alley was oftentimes a family thing. So the teenagers got roped in whether they wanted to or not. And that's why most of the teenagers hung out in the bowling alley portion.
Right.
But there were some young ladies as well as just the dudes. Let's see what else are you skipping through. Oh, I have to go to this one. Johnny says, I remember a neighbor had a Pong and was playing it out on the back porch when I was a kid in the mid 70s. My grandparents had Pong, and my uncles were really intensely what's we're looking for, competitive over it. It got really heated in the family room sometimes in a good-natured kind of way.
Well, all I know is there is a great Black Francis song called "Whatever Happened to Pong," Black Francis is the singer of the Pixies, and in his solo career, he produced an album called Teenager of the Year. It's hilarious because he's on it. He's like, I don't know, 30 years old at the time or something like that. He's like carrying flowers. It's hilarious. But one of the songs on there is called Whatever Happened to Pong. It's a pretty killer song. It's got a nice little punk sound to it.
Georgia says, I grew up with vinyl.
Yeah. I mean, a lot
did.
of people did. And I had a small collection of vinyl stuff. I think I mentioned I had Annie, I had The Gambler, I had Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, I had Pipes of Peace by Paul McCartney. I had the Jacksons, not the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, because that came out, and a couple other records, but I never bought any more of them. I just, once I had that initial kind of setup that I got, I just didn't ever really buy into buying tapes. But a lot of people were vinyl, and vinyl's held out now. I mean, I go to the bookstore, and there's a whole section there on vinyl. So I mean, it's held the test of time.
Trey Ross-Myers says, my first Walkman was an AWAI, an AWI, and a Y.
Yeah.
Why? Because we like you.
That's got to be an off-brand.
Sony, but
yeah. I had all different kinds. I didn't care if it played tapes. Didn't matter to me.
Mr. Felix says, don't expect to look too sexy to the female gender playing video games. You're right, but we worked with what we got.
What? That doesn't even make any sense. Don't expect to look
too sexy to the female gender playing video games. Yeah, being a vidiot, I think is what we called them back then, or arcade geek, wasn't cool then and probably isn't particularly cool now. But hey, again, we worked with what we got.
Yep.
There you go. Spike says, you went to the wrong arcades, Dave. Let me guess, no smoky pool hall for you either. Probably not.
No, there's no smoking inside in Utah. I don't think. Well, no, there used to be smoking sections and stuff like that. And Mama Pink, hey, let's look at that.
Mama Pink is in the house. Hey, Mama Pink, how we doing? I always wanted to play games at the arcade, but the boys didn't like a girl there playing. I would have been honored.
We would have loved to have had you. I don't know what these boys were thinking.
I remember girls being at schools out when I was a kid. I mean,
it wasn't a huge population for us, but there were a few. They were generally pretty cool too.
Let's see, skipping down. Oh, Mr. Led says, John H., I had a Pong, paid $10 for it, thought it was awesome at the time. I think Pong is awesome now. In fact, one of those little old style setups I have in my garage still has Pong, and I still play it from time to time, and I can beat the computer at it.
Oh, cool.
I thought so. Let's see.
Can you beat the computer at chess?
My chess game is broken somehow. Don't know how, but I'm sure I could if I wanted to.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, I just froze up for a second there. Sorry.
That's all right.
Let's see. Lance Javen says, Dave, my arcade was at a bowling alley on Friday nights. Yes, a lot of them were in bowling alleys. A lot of them
were, in other places, right?
And Mama Pink says, my first console was Ping, then Atari. That's ringing a bell.
Never even heard of Ping. That's interesting.
I think Ping is what it was called before. They just called it the Atari blank.
Wow.
I think that there's like some bell ringing in the back of my head. But I'm not 100% there. If you have any clarity on that, please feel free to pass it along. John H. says, very good. My brother bought a big calculator whose biggest feature was memory for $80 at Kmart. Yeah. Calculators used to be wicked expensive.
Yeah, they were cool. Did you ever have, she meant Pong.
She meant Pong.
Yeah, but did you ever have
there was a precursor to Atari, though.
Yeah, did you ever have the watch calculator? Did you ever see those?
No, my dad bought me a digital watch when I was 8, and it was like a wicked novelty. I watched people just say, "Could you just show me how it lights up?" Mm-hmm. But all it had was a clock feature. I never had the watch calculator.
I didn't either, but I thought they were really cool, and I always really wanted them because I wasn't very good at math, so I always really wanted that. It was nutty. I mean, they were so cool, and there's memes about this right now. But your teacher would always say you can't carry a calculator with you everywhere, and now we carry our phones with us everywhere, and they're basically got any feature you want on. You don't have to push buttons. You can just say, "Hey Siri, what's
8 times
17
5.
divided by." You can just say whatever you want to say on it. Just give it to you, give you the answer.
Spike Spikerson says the girls were great at pinball. I love pinball. Oh, and look who else loves pinball. Mama Pink, I loved pinball.
Yeah, pinball was cool. I wasn't hugely obsessive over it, but I mean, I enjoy playing a game of pinball now and again. It wasn't my go-to though. I mean, it really wasn't my go-to. I like that car spy game. Remember that car spy game where you could
Oh yeah, what was
do
it
the
called? You had the oil slick
yep,
button and the
and then
machine guns.
and then the smoke in the back and stuff too. That was one of
Yeah.
my favorite. I like the music on that one too. That had a really good music.
It was the Peter Gunn theme. Dun 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 dun,
Oh
or a
yeah,
variation of it, a
yeah.
variation. Tracy Rosemeyer said, I had a Discman, it was a skipper. Yes, they
Yeah,
all were.
they were. You might as well have just thrown it away, from what I've heard from the first ones you got, because you just couldn't go anywhere with it. It would just skip. The
Made a nice
skip,
paperweight.
yeah,
Dave Substance said most of the arcade games that I played during the 70s were in gas stations, usually
yeah.
just a couple at each one. Later on in the 80s, we had arcades. Yes, Dave, that little peach, it wasn't a gas station, but it was the exact type of situation. It had a little booth in the front, and it had the games in that. And a lot of the gas stations I remember, particularly the bigger ones on the interstate, had some of that too. So while Dad was filling up, the kids could do something to keep them from getting
They could
grumpy.
play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Treather Mine says, "I love my Simon game."
Yes,
I had a
Simon was
Simon too.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's those little one held hand games like the Simon and the football that we talked about, and there was a couple other little one handheld game, but Simon was cool. I was the master at Simon. Nobody could beat me. Just do 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 do. I did. We had a thing like, so I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not sure. I'm going to repeat a story here. I know I never repeat stories, but you know what? I'm going to repeat this story. But for a while at Little Caesars Pizza, they have a Simon game at Little Caesars Pizza, and it's not round. It's four of them, but it's in a row. And I would always win something. I would normally always get to at least a medium-sized pizza, if not a large pizza. So it just depended on how well you did on it, and I always just kicked its butt. So I had a really, really super good memory. I think I've mentioned that before. Get it?
Yes, I at least from what I recall. Yeah.
At least from what I recall, I had a really good memory. No, actually, they tested me every year in school because I couldn't read very well. So they tested me, and because I was always in special classes, so they always tested me, and my reading skills were just absolutely atrocious, but I could memorize like crazy. They would just tell me stories, and I did not have an eidetic memory though. I did not have an eidetic memory, but there were people who tested me who said that I had the best memory that they had seen. They'd heard of eidetic memory, but they've never seen anybody. But for many people who tested me, they said I was the best that they had actually seen. So anyway, a little bragging on myself there. Still can't read.
John H says, I remember Radio Shack's last days. There would be more employees in a store than customers. Isn't that heartbreaking? Like the last days of Kmart. Yes, it was very, very sad. And Black Otter goes on to support that with the worst buy and circuit. And we all know what he was saying there.
Right,
it rhymes
right.
with city, but a different world altogether. And yes.
There's a comedian I've mentioned before, but his name's Nate Bargatze, and he's got some really funny stuff on Target, Kmart, and Walmart. And he said he's pretty funny, man. He talks about Kmart. He says, well, I'm not rich enough to go to Target. I'm more of a middleman, like a Walmart person. Says, but I'm not a Kmart person. Like, you go to a Kmart and you even wonder if they're open. He says, "Hey, are you guys open? Well, are you going to turn the lights on over there? Because I wanted to shop." He's a funny guy. Nate
It
Bargatze, look him up.
I will. It certainly went downhill at the end. I will. Dave McGarthy. I will check him out. But yeah, we had a camera in our area, and it was just getting sad towards the end. It really was.
Our Kmart wasn't that sad, but it's still
Ours
closed
was.
down. I mean, it's still
Ours, yeah.
closed down. Yeah, it was crazy. I enjoyed Kmart. I hate that they went out of business because I think if they could have turned it around. I think I don't know.
Well, I think the buyout was Sears. They thought it was going to turn them around, and I think it was the worst decision they could have made. The old
Ah,
the old expression, "Don't hit your wagon to a falling star."
yeah.
Tracy Ross Myers says, "Truth, Lance. I also liked my Merlin. I'm not sure what Lance's truth was, but I had a Merlin handheld game too, and I played it for hours.
Which one was
Anytime
that?
that was the one. It was sort of this really cool burgundy maroon color, and it looked like one of those old style phones. And it had a pad in the middle with numbers, and you would dial in what type of game you wanted to play.
Mm.
And there was like tic tac toe and magic square, and there was one where you had to like match tunes similar to Simon, only it was audio instead of visual. It was fun, and it was supposed to like enhance memory. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I had one myself, and it was a lot of fun. Uh, and let's see. Oh, Dave Sundstrom says, "Loved the podcast, Ian and Bob. Great conversation."
Well, thank
Well,
you, Dave. It means a
we
lot.
learn from the best.
Yes, we do for sure.
Oh, Tracy
Play
Ross
Oregon Trail.
Myers mentioned Oregon Trail. You talking about Oregon
Yep,
Trail?
I was. I was mentioning Oregon Trail. That was a fun game. I loved it, especially when you got to shoot for your food. That was like the highlight of the game because the little deer would go across and you'd have to shoot it just in time, and your buckshot would go out, and it was kind of a from a I think it was from a downward angle. Yeah, so it looked like you were in the bushes from the top down, and the deer would run across. That was my favorite. That was my favorite part of the game. The rest of the game, I didn't really care about a whole lot. Let's get to the shooting.
Mama Pig says Merlin. I forgot all about that. Oh, yeah, it was a fun one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
Merlin was
and
fun.
we haven't even talked about this one. Lance Chaffin says I had 145 records, Tracy. Yes,
Yes,
we all talked about albums. We haven't been talking about the single shots, the 45s.
didn't even own one. I had a friend who owned a couple of them, but I didn't
I
even own one.
I
You had a
I, I
bunch
had
of them?
I had a bunch of 45s. I think I inherited most of them from my father, but
Oh yeah.
I had a bunch of them because sometimes you don't want every track on the album, but you have to have the song.
You have to have the
But
song you want to listen to all the time because the radio doesn't play it as often as you want to listen to it.
exactly, exactly.
Right. Well, did you remember the tape singles that came out?
I do, and I had one or two of those, but by that time I learned the valuable lesson. Well, yes, there may only be one or two songs on the album you want to listen to, but it's still worth your while as opposed to buying the single shots. And then usually on the album, the other songs aren't too bad either. So I'd rather have something long play than something I have to get up every 2.5 minutes to change, even
Mm.
if it is a few more bucks. And by this point, like I remember I said, like the music stores in my area, they were selling cassette tapes for like $5.99 by this point. So how much were you really saving buying the singles? So I
Yeah.
stuck with the full length features.
Yeah. Well, I had a girlfriend that got. Do you remember the Escape Club, Wild Wild West?
I have the album.
Oh, you do. Okay,
I have
so
the album.
she got that tape, and she got the single, and she got Chris Isaac's. His one big song that he did. I forgot the name of the song,
Fall in
but
love.
yeah,
I'd have fallen
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna try to sing right now.
No, well, him definitely not. I mean, I am so far out of his range, or vice
Right,
versa.
right. But she just listened to those things over and over again. And it was just literally two songs on and or four songs altogether. It was the Escape Club, Wild Wild West, and then the B side, and then whatever. And then we just listened to that all day long. She'd be like, play it, and then turn it over, then play it, then turn it over, get the next one, turn it over. Ah, All right. Okay. Sounds great.
Future Boy says, "Do you remember floppy disks?" No, do I remember them? That game I keep referring to, the one that I played for hours and hours and hours when I should have been studying, Sun Tzu's The Ancient Art of War.
Yeah.
I had that on a floppy disk until it finally just gave out. They were great formats. The only problem was, and I learned this the hard way, you spill a drop of water on it, forget it. Or a
It's
speck
over.
of dust, done.
Is that the one that was literally floppy and it came in like a 3x5?
Yeah, it was a disc,
Yeah.
and it was in a it
That,
was in
that's what
that
Oregon
glass
Trail. That's
sheath.
what Oregon Trail came on. You had to push in Oregon Trail in the thing and close it and let it load up and all that stuff. Yeah.
Danny Staten says, "I got E-Machine at Walmart in 1995. Great computer, had it for years."
I don't even know what an e-machine is. I guess it's just is it
I'm guessing
probably
some
a,
kind of
a
game machine.
Windows? It's got to
I'm
have,
not a, It
yeah.
sounds cool, but I'm not entirely sure what it is myself.
Well, that 8-bit guy, he has computers on there that just like you don't even know the amount of computers exist. It's a lot of fun to watch him. I'm not terribly interested in it, but he makes it interesting. Have you ever had that happen where like it's
Oh
like a
yeah,
subject you don't really care a lot about, but a
at
person can
all.
speak so well about it that you're like, hey, this guy actually makes this sound very interesting. I've never really been interested in this subject before, but he talks so well about it that it makes it interesting. Well, the 8-bit
Oh,
guy does that for me with old computers talking about them. I mean, it's just a lot of fun to listen to him.
John H says my parents had their first VCR in 1986. My first I got in 1988. About the same time I
Mm.
got my first one solo. I mean, we always had one in the house, but I got one for myself. So yes, wasn't it cool when you finally get your own first one and you could alter your viewing selections to be more what you wanted as opposed to having to be family friendly?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first one I got was in that console. My mom got it, and then she moved and left it with me, and then so I just took it along with me. It was light enough that you could just carry with one hand.
Mama Pink says my parents jumped onto the beta bandwagon. I'm so sorry, Miss
Ah,
Pink.
my mother-in-law jumped onto the beta bandwagon
They were a
when
good
we
system, but
when we went
unfortunately,
over
they
there. She had a ton of Betamax, ton of them, ton of them. Yeah.
as it says, first videos on dial-up looked like they were smeared with Vaseline. Yeah, the image was hideous.
It was pretty
Hideous.
bad. It was pretty bad.
Well, not only that, but the screens weren't as high tech. So even if the video was good, it would look terrible on your system.
Yeah.
Lance Chafin says we had a Blockbuster and a Hollywood Video. We had both of those as well, and
Yes.
that's something that we kind of touched upon earlier, but didn't really speak about. The video store is what really made that VHS take off.
Yeah.
In fact, my first stores I went to, you actually rented the equipment. So
Hmm.
you didn't just rent the VHSs you were going to watch. You would rent the player, and if you were a member, you didn't have to pay a deposit.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes,
Yeah,
which
we
was very
rented,
nice.
like I said, we rented all the way up till 91, I think, was when finally we got that one. Yeah. Those were great. I actually have a whole like 45 minutes worth of my own stories on video store memories. But Hollywood Video, man, that was we had a Blockbuster too, but Hollywood Video was closer to me, so I was a member at Hollywood Video. What else we got?
John H says, "Cute T-shirt, Thrash. Thank you. I
Oh
actually
yeah,
read this in many of my posts.
what's it say?
It says,
This
"This
this
just
just
in,
in.
you're an idiot."
That's excellent.
Thank you, thank you. Danny Staten says, "I got my first. I got no." He says, "I got my VCR at a movie place in 1979. They had thousands of movies to rent, and you could buy them for like $20. Really?
Yeah.
Because when they first came out, they were very expensive. In fact, I must have told you folks this anecdote. Generally, the price point for the rental stores
Yeah.
was $80 a unit. But Paramount had this brilliant idea. Christmas is coming up. People might want to give the gift of a movie. In fact, that's going to be our slogan. And they experimented. They took Top Gun and they approached corporations and said, if if you give us money per unit, we'll put a commercial of yours onto Top Gun. And Pepsi was all about it. And Pepsi gave Paramount so much money just to put the Pepsi commercial on this Top Gun, so you had to go through the Pepsi commercial before you get to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It lowered the price point down to like $24.99 as opposed to $80, and it sold like hotcakes because people are like, oh, $25 for the movie. I watch it 5 times; it's paid for itself, you
Yeah.
know. Or a family of 5 watches it once, and Paramount said, that's what we're doing for this Christmas. And they came up with a whole slew of movies. I remember that first year it was like Trading Places and Cabaret. And I'm trying to remember, but there were a whole slew of them. And I think I bought one of each and gave them as gifts. And they gave them to you in a little promotional stocking. So you didn't
Oh,
have to wrap it.
right on.
And I bought a bunch of them. That's what I did for Christmas that year. But yeah, $20 in '79. That was impressive. I'm guessing they were probably used, possibly, because a lot of places did that. Let's see. Tracer Myers says, I liked my Wizard Day Planner, forerunner of my iPhone, but no phone capabilities.
Yeah, I think that was the Palm Pilots we were talking about. That were kind of the forerunner of the phone. I had all kinds of stuff. It had a calendar in it and a calculator and a place where you could store numbers and stuff like that.
Lance Chafin says, we had a VCR with a cord on the remote. Yes, the wired remote. The technological dead end of the technological dead end. Oh, and this is Mr. Blacketer says, corded remotes. Life sucked then.
Yeah.
Well, it was certainly not quite as creature comforted.
I mentioned this on the thing. I'm going to mention this here because I don't know. There's probably people watching this here. They didn't quite get to watch the other one, but when we got cable the first time we moved down here, or not the first time ever, but the first time we moved where I am currently, they gave us like this little square box. It was about that big and about like that wide, and almost like a book. I'm trying to get like a book here, like maybe like a dictionary, kind of like this, and it may be a little bit thinner, but basically it had another thing along the top, and along the top was this little clicker that you'd move across horizontally. It'd go click, 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 and you could go through all the movie channels that way. But it was tethered as well to the television. So I don't know if anybody else had that, and we didn't have it for very long. They upgraded us pretty quickly and got rid of all those. But the very first time they came down, they gave us this little box that you could literally set it on your coffee table, and then your TV's over there, and you just go click, 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 or you could grab it or whatever. But it was tethered to it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody else had that one or not.
I don't recall that one, but I'm sorry. Right. I found a really cool comment and I lost it, and I'm trying to get back to it now.
It's all right. Try it.
By the way, you guys have been giving some gold in this comment section, and if I miss your comment, please forgive me. We've had so much to shout out to. In fact, here's a good one. How about the boom boxes?
Oh yeah, well that's where it's at right there. Is the boom boxes? Love those things because you could. Cassettes. Yeah, because I mean, with the headphones, that's great because it's portable. You go places, but in your room, if you have somebody over, you want to be able to play them music. So the boom boxes were terrific. Plus the tape to tape on the boom boxes and making your own mixtapes. That was a huge deal for me. I worked at Walmart for a little while, and they allowed you to. The place that I worked in was shipping, and they allowed you to have a tape because you just stacking boxes. That's it. You just sit and stack boxes all day, and so you would bring tapes, and the tape player that I would just spend hours doing making different mixtapes, and then we would all trade them at work too. So we would trade them, but you had to have a boombox to do that. So the boombox with the tape to tape, that was where it was at, man. That was where it was at. Loved it. Plus, you could do a little, you bring the boombox with you and do a little popping and locking. You know what I'm talking about? Popping and locking from breaking.
Of course, of course. Oh, Dave Claroni says Atari Pitfall.
Atari
Definitely,
Pitfall. Here's to
definitely.
you.
One of my favorites. Uh, oh, Rich
Space
Edward in the
Invaders.
house. Hello, Rich.
Hello, Rich.
Space Invaders Atari 2600. Um, Space Invaders is again probably my all-time favorite video slash arcade game, and on the 2600, I spent many hours playing it there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dave Flory says, Ian C, watch out for that carpal tunnel.
Yeah. You got to watch out for that. All right. Yeah. Don't play too many Atari games. You're going to get carpal tunnel.
Rich Atwood says, on some of the games it really sucked, you had to switch from the joystick to the paddle. I always use joystick. I don't. In fact, I think by the time the paddle came out, there was one game that we needed the paddle for.
The racing
Circus
game.
Atari?
The racing game. You had to have the paddle for it.
That's right. So I think Circus Atari did it too.
Yeah, there were a few different ones that you needed the paddle for, but you pressed on the button to get gas, and you used that to do the racing.
Check.
What else we got?
Lance Chafin says Sam Elliott also would mask. Yes, he was. He played Cher's boyfriend, and he's great in everything he does. In fact, just the other night, someone was talking about how Roadhouse is their favorite popcorn movie, and I had to interject. And it's my guilty pleasure, folks. I must confess, but Roadhouse, Next of Kin, best double feature. Great double feature there. Mama Pink says Superplex says who? The boys were mean to me because I wanted to play video games with them. Very sorry to hear that, Miss Pink.
Yeah.
Very nice. Boys have come a long way. We've all become middle-aged men. And now we wish we could find people to play games with us. Rich Atwood says, I remember going to the video arcades and they be having pinball tournaments. Ooh, I never saw a tournament, but that's
I never saw a tournament either, but that's cool. That's really cool. That'd be fun to watch.
Dave Clooney says, guys, this is such a fun, cool discussion. Yes, it certainly is. Thank you very much.
Well, it
wouldn't be half part.
Yeah, it would be half the discussion without you guys feeding us this. I mean, I'm sure there's always stuff that he and I could think of talking about, but quite honestly, I mean, we're just playing off of what you guys say and thinking of our own memories and stuff. Spy Hunter. That's the name of that game.
Thank you. Spy Hunter was the spy game we were talking about some time ago, which shows how far back we're going.
Right. Maybe we can do a rapid fire, kind of catch us up here or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, number one dude in the house.
Number one dude. Good to hear from you, brother.
Thrash running late tonight. Well, we're very glad you joined us. Better late than never.
Yep, better late than never. Let's.
And he goes on to say, welcome to Circuit City, where service is a state of the art.
I never went to a Circuit City. We still have a Best Buy here in town, though.
They opened up one down here, and it lasted like a year and a half, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Mama Pink says, I still have single song cassette tapes and vinyl. I have a few kicking around as well.
The single song cassette tapes. That's cool. Right on.
And Hungry Jerk. Hello, Hungry Jerk. Hungry Jerk says, I haven't got past Atari 2600. It's a great system.
That's good stuff.
He goes on to say, I still tape shows with my VHS. Got over 250 unopened tapes to use. 250. I must confess, from when I worked in the video store, I do have movies that I've bought and still haven't opened and watched yet. They're still in my collection somewhere, but I don't think it approaches 250. That's a lot. Oh, look who's in the house. Lee Mateus.
How you doing, Lee?
Duo. Good to see you.
Thank you. I'm going to be reaching out to you pretty soon here. So I know that I've said that before, but it's going to happen. Okay. This thing's kind of go slow. This is a once a week thing. So you get a couple shows already listed up. It takes a while to get to it, but you are on my mind, my friend. And I do want to talk to you about hip hop.
Oh, this is cool. Mama Pink says Nesty did the same type of advertising when Dirty Dancing was released onto VHS for their white chocolate. I did not know that, but I believe it. But yeah,
Mm.
just putting that commercial in the front of a VHS was enough to lower the cost per unit down where pretty much anyone could afford one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Lee Mateo says the Walkmans. Yes, you were a little late. We talked about Walkmans extensively, both the radio version and the cassette tape player. Not big on the DVD, as we've discussed, as they tended to skip a lot.
Right. Hey, everybody, don't forget to hit that like button. Hit that like
Oh,
button while we're all here. Well, we still have
definitely
everybody with us before people start trailing off.
like,
Hit the
subscribe, all that
like
stuff.
button. There was one
Bes-
comment by John Collins. Oh, go ahead with this one.
oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
Berserk and Adventure were always my favorite on Atari. I love both of Berserk. In fact, just the other day, I was saying, chicken fight like fleeing robot, which was like one of my catchphrases. That was up there with, that was the precursor to all your base art belong to us. Adventure was another good one. In fact, I believe I still have both of those on one of my aging consoles in the
Adventure was
garage.
awesome. I really liked
Adventure was awesome.
Adventure. Adventure was pretty cool. I don't really remember any other ones. I don't know the Berserk one. I don't.
Berserk, you're a stick figure and you're running through a maze, and it's basically a complex that has been taken over by an artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence is sending all these robots out. They all sort of look like, for want of a better term, in the black hole, Maximilian.
Oh yeah.
They look like
Okay.
Maximilian, and they're shooting at you, and you're shooting back, and you're trying to get to. And eventually, if you spend too much time in one sector, this sort of have a nice day, smiley face of death comes out and tries to bounce you into non-existence, like something out of The Prisoner, and it's just trippy. So you're running through this maze before the face comes at you, shooting these robots. It's a blast. And again, the robots are shouting insults at you, like
Hmm.
chicken fight like fleeing robot and other things. That was my favorite, but they shout other insults at you as well. The whole thing is, part sci-fi, part acid trip. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Adventure one I knew. I played that one quite a bit. That was the one with the dragons, right?
The dragons, and you find the keys, and you have other,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There was a certain one that I could never get past. The invisible one where you couldn't tell where you were. I could never get past that one. Like it would only be like lit up like a little bit, like in front of you and behind you, and then the dragon would always come and
Come
swallow
at
me, and
you.
you could see you see yourself in its stomach.
Well, that's why you always
Oh,
needed the magic sword before you went into the dark room.
oh yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
But I always, one of the most frustrating is I had found everything. I needed one more piece. I remember what it was. I was going back to get it. I had that magic bridge that could bridge anything,
Uh
and I
huh.
pushed the magic bridge out just slightly too far. So when I let it go, it was on the other side of the wall.
Mm.
So I needed a magic bridge to get to the magic bridge, and of course, there's only one. And I became inconsolable, much like
It
I
was,
did with my
yeah,
outtake the other night. It was very sort
yeah.
of.
In Was that real? Did you really film something and then you say something you didn't film it?
That was 100%. I had done what is possibly the best post of my entire life. I did it all in one take. There wasn't a single flub. Everything came out flawlessly. My delivery was great. I canned it all in the first take,
Oh,
mind
that's
you.
horrible. That's
And
yeah.
what happened was I hit what I thought was a stop button, and I'm pausing, and I'm like, "Why did the red light come on?"
Oh
And then I look in the corner
no.
to see, because it shows you a little box that shows the new footage that you
Yeah.
filmed,
Uh
and it just sort of washed over me. And that's all legit real, by the way. I just kind of went, "Was I not filming?" And for a millisecond, I thought I was going to put my fist through my monitor. I was like, "No, no, no, no." And but I did manage. The one you saw was the second take.
okay.
But yeah, for some reason, I could have sworn I hit the start button. But of course, it's off to the side because I'm looking in the camera.
All
So
right.
I think I hit something else by mistake. But
Do you script it out or no?
no, I do it all free form
Okay.
because I always feel I get a much better performance if I just do it off the cuff as opposed to when I start to rehearse. That's when I'm trying to remember what the next word I have to say is, and
Mhm.
that's when I feel very stilted. When I do my jokes, I have to just kind of roll them off.
Yeah.
And so I know I don't do a script. So I just, I mean, I have the note cards
Mm.
that I just kind of like use to like remind me where I'm going.
Right.
Like
Right.
one time I forget to number them.
Well,
So I'm
well,
like, okay, number so I had to stop and
well,
number
when you
them
do
so I
your reviews, do you do it free form or do you do it off? Do you do off the cuff? Or do you do off the cuff? I mean, or do you do it scripted?
what I it's all off the cuff. What
Mm.
I do is I'll spend a day sort of um collecting my thoughts,
Right.
deciding like what I want to say about X, what I want to say about Y, what I want to say about Z. And then because I haven't quite mastered the art of in-camera editing,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do jump cuts and like replace here and there. So
Mm.
basically what I do is I get myself all keyed up to give a review, hit the start button and just blab at the camera
Just go. Just
until I've
go.
run out of things to say. Hope
Right.
I haven't made too many flubs and then hit stop. And then
Right.
I go
Right.
through it. And if there's too many flubs or I started to babble, I'll redo the whole thing. But it's
Mm.
all off the cuff. And does it
And
work for
John
me? Well,
Collins.
oh yes, John. I'm so sorry,
Oh
John.
yeah,
That was
no,
a
I'm
joke for
sorry.
you.
No, it works for you. I didn't want to cut you off there. I didn't want to cut you off in the middle of your thought for sure.
John
I mean, I
Collins says,
do. I do kind of a little bit of both myself. I'll get to this. We'll get to the comment in a minute, but basically, in the very early days, I would when I very first started, it was really all off the cuff. And then, quite honestly, a lot of the podcasts, like what we're doing right now, is just off the cuff. There's no script,
mm,
so a lot of the longer form ones are just me babbling with maybe bullet points, but the smaller videos like the 5 things you didn't know about and all that stuff is kind of a combo. I noticed at the very beginning. So like if you look at like 5 things you didn't know about Molly Ringwald. There's a lot of pauses and uhs and or whatever, and I didn't like that. So I started writing it out a little bit more. I still go off script a little bit, but I really write it out. My inspiration really is Dan Larson from Toy Galaxy. I don't know if you ever watched Toy Galaxy, but
oh, do I ever? Those are
when he
great.
does a review, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for that very s- smooth thing, that very going for it, saying it's and I just realized that I have to script it out to some degree to get that. Otherwise, it's just a little too
Have you
anyway.
approached him for anything, by the way?
I have, but he have not heard back from him. Everybody wants to send him an email and say, "Hey, go to Retro Serial," because I hear he's a pretty approachable guy, but I'm sure he just gets thousands of emails a day. So if everybody wants to email him and say, "Hey, be on Retro Serial," I wouldn't hate it because I would love to have him on. He is a big icon for me as far as this whole thing is concerned. So anyway, well, let's get to this comment here. It was a while back, but I wanted to make sure that we got it.
John Collins says, Ian, will you do a video on your friend with the visual impairments who you talk
Oh, sorry.
about all the time?
No. Next comment. Just kidding. I thought that was funny. We went back and saw it just to say no. No, listen. I don't know if I could do a whole video on it, but I'll talk about it a little bit here for you. I don't know what I would do with it. I mean, it was a I mean, I'm sure I could say a lot about it because he was a good friend of mine for a lot of years, from basically the time I was 12 till the time I was 16, something like that. I think the last time I saw him, I was like 19, but we were fast friends. And I knew him before he went blind. I met him in the 6th grade center when we both went to 6th grade. So we went to different elementary schools and we went to 6th grade together. We cut school together. And he wasn't blind when I met him. But what ended up happening, he was kind of a hoodlum. And he got in trouble for breaking an entry. And he broke an entry on this place 3 times. And finally, the last time, his friend got caught, and then his friend ratted him out. And you're just a kid, though. I mean, you're just scared out of your bullets when you actually get caught by a police officer. So you tell them everything. You just spill your guts. Uh, and so, um, and so he got sent off to a youth home where he had to do manual labor. And while he was digging rocks into the back of a truck, a kid got into the back of the truck and didn't know that he was behind him and ran him over. And he tried to get on to the truck, but it ran over his stomach. and he got caught under the wheel. It diagonally rolled in her stomach. He lifted up and was like, "Oh!" And then it went over his head, and it crushed his optic nerve and blinded him. And he was one of the best guitar players I'd ever met in my entire life. He had an incredibly good voice. He was very, very talented, and he was very, very, very bright. And we used to make tapes together all the time. Funny, like, or pretend to be DJs and stuff like that. We'd walk everywhere all the time. He was a little slower at walking, of course, because he was blind. But I don't know what else I would really say about him. I mean, he was the guy that I've talked about many times that had tape players because he could get all the tapes of books on tapes from the government, and but they had four-sided tapes, so it was really interesting. So he had tapes that actually had four sides on them. I don't know how they do it. That never did, but you actually had to have the actual tape player too. So you had the tape player and you would play one side, then click it, and they would go back to the other side. And there were literally four sides on one tape. So he wrote a bunch of stories. He was an incredible person. Unfortunately, I think in '09, and I hadn't kept up with him since for a long time. In '09, he died of an overdose. So didn't hear anything from him for a lot of years before. Of course, when I was 15, I moved and didn't really, you just start getting new friends and stuff like that, and kept up with them a couple times. And that's really not much more we could say about it. All righty. What else we got?
Dave Claroni says, Thresh, did you say you may do a show in the man cave? I certainly will. In fact, I've actually, not to spoil at the man cave, but I've done many videos in it. In fact, pretty much if you go to my backlog of older videos, most of them were actually done in the garage. In fact, if you don't see this very nice backdrop, it means it was probably shot in my man cave.
Yeah.
And let's see what else we got here. Lee Mateus says Atari was really great for its amazing sound that just give a special feeling as you play it. It's like you're experiencing history you weren't supposed to see, like seeing dinosaurs.
That is an interesting take on it. Like history is just going to be different. I think about that too with the way people talk. Like we have no idea what George Washington sounded like. You know what I mean? But we're gonna know what people sound like now. I mean, it's very interesting. Yeah, it is like getting in a time machine and going back and seeing the dinosaurs because everything's being recorded now. So it's the way we study history in the future will definitely change. We'll have definitely better documents to study history. As a history person myself, at least of certain eras, I enjoy history, and I'm just looking forward to how history is going to be studied in the future. It's going to be a game changer.
And it'll be different history because the future and the history will be today's present.
Yeah, for sure.
Hungry Jerk says Toy Galaxy is great. He certainly is. I love his channel.
Yeah,
it's great
I
stuff.
love Toy Galaxy too. I don't know if you can hear my dogs fighting in the background there.
Who let the dogs out? Zuberflick says
who?
There you go. Jump cuts are the key to a good video. Well, it certainly seems that way. I had a friend, this is years ago, and it's time consuming, but it was great. What he would do is, if he had to do a jump cut, he would do something in between. He would take a still image, usually of what you were talking about, and he would intersplice it in between. So the before the jump and the after the jump would seem seamless. Like it wouldn't look like there was something cut out of the middle. And I thought that was ingenious. It was just very time consuming to do. But let's see. Mama Pink says, Zuberplex says, what's a jump cut? I think she's speaking ironically, as the kids would say these days. Yes, indeed. She then goes on to say, all of my videos are off the cuff, LOL. Most of the time, I don't know I'm going to make a video until the animals start being the cutest.
Awesome.
Oh, and Spike Spikerson says, I used to dance under the name Jump Cut in the 90s. Did you walk around with your own piece of cardboard and you would lay it on the sidewalk and start breakdancing on it? Let's see what else we got here. Tracy Ross Myers says, I'd like to see the man cave. You know what? I think I'm actually going to do that. I think I'm actually do a walkthrough in my man cave. I'll have to make sure it doubles as my wife's laundry room.
Right,
So
right.
I'll have to get the drying rack out of it.
Well,
It ruins the ambiance.
mine's in disarray. I mean, this part of it kind of looks a little bit put together, but it is so like I've got a couple exercise machines over in the corner there that just got like brooms and rakes and stuff hooked up against it, and a bunch of bookshelves and stuff like that too. So you can see, like, I don't know, you can see all my that's one. See, look how bad that looks. See all those books that are all, and then look, we got another bookshelf over here too. Can you see the other one or no? Let me see.
Is it on the other side?
Let's see. There.
I mean, I
Oh
see the
no.
one directly behind you. Oh, there's
Yeah.
another. Oh,
Oh,
yes, there is another one.
there's another bookshelf there. And then if you turn it around here, I'll even do this. Look at this. Something special for everybody. If you turn it that way, there's another bookshelf. And behind that bookshelf is another bookshelf. And on the other side of the hall on that bookshelf is another bookshelf.
I see a trend.
They're all completely filled too. And then right directly behind me is another bookshelf. Just so you know.
So basically, you're sort of in a fort of bookcases.
And then in the other room, we've got like 3 huge bookshelves. No, 1, 2, 3, 4 huge bookshelves. And they're all full. And then we've got books everywhere too, all in the garage and everywhere. I don't know how many books I have. Probably upward 3,000 or something like that. Bookshelves. Not bookshelves, but books. At least I couldn't even number how many books that I have. I get them with the intent to read them, and a lot of them are reference books too. You know, they're just reference, so you don't read the whole thing. You get like a dictionary or whatever. I think I got. Yeah, let's see here. I'll show you one. Here's a Vine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words. So, you know, like when I'm thinking of a word or whatever, and I think I got to go look that word up, make sure that I got a good understanding of it. So I got a lot of reference works like that. But anyway, yeah. Well, I've been asked before to show the man cave, but it's not worth showing. What you've seen is about as best as it's going to get. But we'll see yours as well, too, Thrash.
Well, I think people have probably seen mine, but there's a lot of stuff that you probably, because mine has so many tchotchkes and other things in it. I think it might be nice if I gave it like a once over, saying, "Oh, I picked this up in England," and "Oh, this was from here," and "Oh, and yes, I was in this organization," and that type of thing.
That'd be fun.
So maybe I'll do a little something like that. I won't get too, self patting on the backish, but I will give it a once over and spotlight some of the things at least I'm more proud of. So yes, but
cool.
Check out my older videos, and
in your older videos, you're in your garage and you can see all your stuff in the back there.
Dave Claroni says, guys, with a lot of subscribing to the same channels and watching the same live shows, what are the chances of doing a virtual meetup where we can all talk?
Like on this program, I mean, I actually thought about that one time. I do want to do a video store memory one where everybody can chime in, because I've chimed in and we've talked about it before, but I might do one where because Dave does this, where he does a link to his channel, and then people can just jump in and say hi and tell their video store stories and then go. But you'd be surprised, Dave, that how many people don't want to do that, though. You know, I mean, they don't want to be on camera, so
they're shy.
You might, it might be a little bit more disappointing than you think. You might think, oh, hey, we're having this good time in this chat, let's all talk.
The dog just got in there, didn't he?
Yeah, the one dog's running from the other dog. I think they need to go outside. Gotcha. We might have to wrap things up here real quickly. Let's.
This was a great show. More. You guys were all very. I mean, if I skipped anybody, I'm terribly, terribly sorry. There were so many comments.
I think I left a link to your channel too. You were one away from 100, weren't you?
I am. So, I have my special 100 show all geared up as well.
Look at that! I gave you another one right there. Now, everybody, if there's somebody out there who is not subscribed, then yeah. Please
I know
subscribe.
Some of you haven't. Please, I promise you. And my special feature is still going on too. If you're a new subscriber, or what the heck, even an old one, all you have to do is say, Thrash, do a post on this topic, and I will do a post on that topic for you.
Yeah, for sure. Right on.
It's my same thing. Thank you. Awesome.
Well, everyone, I gotta cut it short. I'm sorry. My dogs are going crazy right now, and I don't think anybody in the house is present enough to really look out for them. They're all engaged in other things. So want to thank you all so much. Well, we went for a while tonight, didn't we? We went
Over
to
an hour and a half.
yeah, over an hour and a half. It's been awesome. I really super appreciate everybody. Please subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Thrash's channel, take a video from our channel and share it on your favorite social media. And with that, we are going to say good night to you all, and we will see you next week.